As I made my way down the east coast of Taiwan, I was a little disappointed with Hualien and the gorge being closed, but I got over that pretty quickly, and the area around Taitung was amazing. I was only there a couple of days, but the trip to the highlands to see the balloon festival, the biking around the city, and most impressive, strangely, my visit to the Taitung Community Design Center, which basically the community has really empowered the stakeholders in the community, meaning the people that live there, to change the community and to have input and to have a valid voice. So it impressed me so much. There's cities like Taitung all over Taiwan because people here take community really seriously, and they have projects like this where community comes together and actually creates the cities and the designs and the products that are born there. So it's really cool. So I did eat something really good in Taitung, which cracked me up because the best thing that I ate there was a burrito made with Spanish pork by a Canadian in the night market. There was other good food, but that was my favorite, and it's pretty funny. From Taitung, I took a bus to the ferry port and then got on a ferry to Orchid Island, which is called Lanyu in the indigenous Dao language. I met a really nice couple on the bus to the port. There's Vianna, who's a Taiwanese actress. She lives in Paris, and her French boyfriend, Dorian, who lives in Hong Kong. They had come together and were going out there to do some cool things, and they were just really cool, nice people. Really enjoyed connecting with them, and I imagine we'll see each other again. Sometimes with travel friends, you never know, but in this case, I think that's the case. So arriving on Lanyu, my hostel was near the port. It was called Dudu Wo Homestay, which means owl in the Tao language. And so I went to rent a scooter, and that's when I hit a roadblock, because Lanyu is the strictest place in Taiwan to rent a scooter. You absolutely have to have a motorcycle endorsement on an international driver's permit, an IDP, which you can get from AAA in the States before you leave. I have the IDP, but I did not have the motorcycle endorsement, and no one would rent to me. So Lanyu without a scooter, it's not really all that great. So I was a little bummed out again, but I just determined to make the best of it. And so I sat on the roof of the hostel and I drank a few beers, and I went to bed pretty early, but not before I met all of these cross-dressing young guys from Hualien who were just there, like having a little get-together, and they were super funny, and, we laughed and joked a little bit, and then I went to bed pretty early. The next morning I woke up, and I had decided to walk and hitchhike around the island since I couldn't get a scooter. Apparently you can rent a bicycle or a car, but I thought walking and hitching would be a better way to go. It was raining pretty hard when I woke up, but I just put on my rain jacket and I went anyway, and surprisingly, it cleared up really quickly. The rides were easy. There was a construction worker on a motorbike, an appliance recycler in a truck, two young guys making deliveries in another truck, and all of them were nice, but none of their English was better than my very, very limited Chinese. Mostly, however, it was just smiles that communicated. So I walked a lot, about 16 miles in total, which is according to my phone. I think it was more than that though, but one problem with Lanyu is connectivity. I didn't have service most of the time I was there unless I was connected to Wi-Fi at the hostel. So that was one problem, but actually kind of nice too. Anyway, I'm grateful that I got to walk and hitch around Lanyu. It's a beautiful island. It reminds me a lot of Hawaii, but an older version of Hawaii, a not so touristy Hawaii. Although the tourism on Lanyu is pretty much everywhere you go. It's just not highly polished forms of it. So I'm told that the population of Lanyu is about 3,000 people, with the majority being Taiwanese who come over to work there, and the minority being about 1,000 of the Tao people. There are at least 1,000 or so tourists at any given time, and maybe as few as 500, but it's really hard to guess. The Tao people are more closely related to the Austronesian people of the Philippines, and those are the people that, generated the Polynesians, and so it was really familiar seeming place. So they're more closely related to them than to Taiwanese or Han Chinese, though most of them speak Mandarin and not English. They have a really interesting tribal culture that visually looks a lot like Tlingit people of the Pacific Northwest and Southeast Alaska, but it feels a lot like Polynesian canoe culture. So Lanyu could easily have been an underdeveloped Hawaiian island. There's not much in the way of beaches or waves, but clear, beautiful blue waters, healthy coral reefs, great diving and snorkeling. And I snorkeled a little bit, but honestly, these days I don't have too much interest in going under the water. I've just seen a lot of that around the world, and it's not my super passionate interest. So having completed the circuit and getting one hell of a sunburn on my arms and legs, I doctored up my IDP. I smudged some soot on my finger, and I went ahead and added my own motorcycle endorsement, forged it so that I could rent a scooter. And it was a good decision. For 500 new Taiwan dollars, I had a scooter for 24 hours. I was able to circle the island again. I stopped at a few points that caught my interest on my walk, and then I returned to the hostel, had a swim, met a bunch of really cool Taiwanese students. We played in the water together, and later on I drank a beer with a heart surgeon named Tim and the owner of a bunch of 7-Elevens, and this interesting Indonesian Dutch girl named Gabriella, and they invited me to join them on a night tour using scooters. So the night tour was run by a Tao husband and wife, and they showed us owls and lizards and snails and crabs and night blooming flowers. The tour was in Mandarin, so it was free for me, and Tim translated a bit. But that was nice of the Tao couple. They didn't want to charge me because I wouldn't understand what they were saying. After that, Tim and Afong, the 7-Eleven guy, went to a bar and invited me, but I'm not really comfortable drinking and riding a scooter, so I did not join them. Back to the hostel for a beer and late night chat with a Polish guy and these two Taiwanese kind of island guys who work in hostels there, and then to bed. And Gabriella spoke really highly of a town called Dulan that sits between Taitung and Hualien, but I'm not going to go back in that direction yet, but maybe later, because it sounds like the kind of place that I'm interested in seeing. There are far worse things than covering yourself up from the sun as you walk around a tropical island. In fact, there aren't many things quite as good. Maybe I don't have to be completely covered up from the sun, but the sun is dangerous, my friends. Make sure that you use sunscreen or cover up like I'm doing. Next up is to catch the ferry and go to Kaohsiung and then maybe to Tainan. I met a girl named Jessie who is on the ferry. She's sort of a brash girl, reminds me of Karina from Fez, but a creative artist type, and hopefully run into her again in Taipei. But this ferry is much less gut-shaking than the one the other day. So Lanyu was a good choice. Everyone I meet keeps asking, how'd you hear about this place? What made you come here? And apparently not a lot of foreigners there. I saw less than 10, though there may have been, others that I didn't see. And yeah, that's it. So here I am, and there I'll go next.